The U.S. are drawing more and more into this conflict. They are getting more involved, it's obvious. And let nobody say that they have nothing to do with it. We think that they do. Along with the Middle Eastern conflict, it all heats up the atmosphere. Look how they drew 2 aircraft carriers into the Mediterranean Sea. I want to say in advance that it is not a threat, the thing that I will inform you now about, but according to my order, the Russian air forces start to constantly patrol the neutral part of the Black Sea. Our jets, MiG-31s, are armed with Kinzhal missiles.
Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. That was Russia's president basically warning U.S. aircraft carriers that they are in range of his hypersonic missiles in the Black Sea. Putin is meeting with Xi Jinping in Beijing, China, and thanking North Korea for sending them weapons as Zelensky of Ukraine now flounders with the international spotlight turning away from Ukraine and toward Israel. All I can think of with this whole mess is, what a shame. We could have cultivated a good alliance with Russia after the demise of the USSR like we did with Japan or Germany. But no. Global ambitions took over, and we drove them straight into the arms of a real threat, like China. There are enough monsters to slay in this world that we don't need to set out in search of more of them, and especially that we don't need to go about creating them for ourselves. This is, of course, my take on what John Quincy Adams told those gathered around him during a speech at the U.S. Capitol building 200 years ago. And what I mean is this: Russia can be a geopolitical annoyance to U.S. national interests in places like the Arctic and Eastern Europe. But they can also be our friend when it comes to the threat of radical Islam. For example, they were one of the first to pledge help to us after 9/11, to give us the heads up that was ignored about the Boston Marathon bombers, and they play a key role in fighting ISIS in the Middle East. And yet, because establishment members of both parties see Russia as being against their liberal world order with their more conservative, traditionalist, nationalist goals, and wanting to keep their failed unipolar moment of when the Soviet Union collapsed, the U.S. and Western Europe have used Russia as their scapegoat for everything, trying to turn them into a boogeyman. And again, not to say that Russia can never be a threat or that they could have been our greatest ally or ever or something like that. But why do we try so hard to make them hate us? All the while, real monsters prowl the world and we need help keeping a peaceful order. Just look at this clip from a Vice News documentary dated to the year 2021 that investigative journalist Christopher Rufo is circulating online today.
أغتنم هذه الفرصة وإحنا بنعيش ذكرى القتل المجرم العنصري لجورج فلويد. جورج فلويد قتل في مثل هذه الأيام نتيجة منهجية عنصرية موجودة لدى أشخاص. اليوم هذه العنصرية التي قتل بها جورج فلويد يمارسها الاحتلال ضدنا وضد أهلنا.
That was a Hamas leader of Gaza spouting the left's rhetoric. Rufo argues Hamas, BLM, Democratic Socialists of America, decolonization, same bloodlust. And I agree with him, but I'll take it a step further. Our backwards foreign policy has turned potential allies into enemies, such as the case with Russia, and has further radicalized existing enemies like Hamas, giving them new PR tools to use against us by speaking like the woke liberal powers of the world. Iran did something very similar during the hostage crisis of 1979 to 1981, when they released everyone except white men, saying that America was cruel enough to women and to minorities. So the theocratic dictators, Islamists of Iran, didn't want to compound that suffering any more than need be. You can all see the ploy there. They used the words of the hippy-dippy movement of that era against us. And now look at all the legions of woke college kids who since graduated believing that Tehran and now Hamas are the underdogs in need of unbridled support. And those college kids are now the adults in charge, the adults in the room, as Biden tried to say, calling all the shots. And look at the mess it's left us in.